2006 Ford Escape Hybrid. We're going to replace the thermostat housing on this one. I'm Brian Eslick from Automotive, and I'm going to walk you through that process. To get started, we're just going to pop this cover off. It's just held on by some press fittings, so you just lift up on it from the corners and remove it. Next, you're going to need a bucket or some sort to catch the coolant. So you put that underneath where the thermostat is. So the thermostat housing is right here below the, here's the belt tensioner for the car. It's right below. You can see the lower hose is attached to it. So there's two hoses here that are attached to it, and we need to remove these hoses. So I got the new part, so you can see the hoses will be here and here. The easiest way to get those hose clamps off is to have a tool like this. So it has a cable that runs around, and it has a little ears here that go over the hose clamps, and then you would squeeze the handle, and when you squeeze the handle, it squeezes the hose clamp, and then it has these little teeth that are built into it right here that lock into place and hold it for you. And then you can take the hose clamp and slide it off the hose, and it'll work your hose. Another tool you're going to probably need is a pick tool. So this one happens to be a really long pick tool. It's about 2.5 feet long here. And that way, when you get the hose clamps off, you can reach down here and you get underneath the hose, the lip of the hose, kind of like this here. So you'll get under the lip of the hose and work the hose off and slide it off. So go ahead and remove those two hoses. So now that you got the hoses off, what you do is just tuck them out of your way, and then you're going to need to get some extensions. I'm using about a 1.5 inch extension with a deep 8mm socket and a flex head ratchet. And I'm going to stick my hand, see if I can get back here, kind of like this through here, and put it on the bolts and take the 3 bolts out. I'll hold it on. The hardest one to get to is going to be, so the thermostat is like this in the block. This is going to be this one down here by my pinky. That's going to be the hardest one to get to. If you're really struggling, you can also take the belt off the tensioner here, and take the 3 bolts off the tensioner, and you remove the tensioner. But I'm gonna work around it do it with it on there. So when you're taking the bolts out, if you look between the ports here, between the dipstick ports down right there, you can actually see what you're doing. You can actually see the bolts, all the hard bolts to get to. You actually see them down there, and you can so you can see your tools. You can see my tools down there, and you can actually see the bolts and get on there and work it off. So these thermostat housings have rubber O-rings for gaskets, so you don't have to like scrape off anything on the block or anything. But you want to just give it a look over and make sure it's not pitted or anything on the block. And if there's any debris on it, we'll go ahead and wipe that off. Now that you got it out, you can reposition your new one back in there and start your bolts. So to get the bolt started on the thermostat, I took one bolt by hand and reached around and started the bolt closest to the belt here, closest to you. And I'm working from the side of the car here, and I started that one by hand. I just put it through the bolt hole and kind of just, wiggled the whole harness, or the whole thermostat housing and everything up and down until I found the bolt hole and started it like that. And now that I got to get to the other bolt, what I did was I took a piece of scrap paper and I stuck it in the socket, and just stuck the bolt in the socket. And now what that does is allows it to hold it in place so it doesn't fall off. So now I can reach around it in the back and then start it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look through this hole, and you can see everything with a flashlight. So definitely start all 3 bolts before you tighten them. Once you get them all started, and then tighten them all down. And tighten them as tight as you can get them. There's not a lot of room in here, and you're not going to get torque wrench or anything in there. So tighten them as tight as you can get them. And then after you get them tightened up, go ahead and slip on your 2 hoses and the hose clamps. And if you're not comfortable using those hose clamps, you can use regular hose clamps. Or if you feel like the clamps are compromised when you squeeze them, sometimes you can damage them if you squeeze them at the wrong angles or anything. So if they're damaged, or change them out. Okay, so after you get the hoses back on, fill it up with the proper coolant, Motorcraft coolant. The gold color coolant is what it takes. Or if you go to an aftermarket parts store, just ask them what type of coolant this takes, and get the equivalent coolant. Then after that, you're gonna start the car and run it. And in the olden days, I would just actually grab the radiator hose and wait for the thermostat to open up, and I would grab the hose and make sure that it's hot. Because what happens is I filled it up to the level here, and it's once the thermostat opens up, it's most likely going to drop, and you're going to have to adjust your level. So, but the way to tell when the thermostat is open is you can actually feel the temperature, but because it's too close to the belt, I don't want to put my hand down there, so I'm going to use my little temperature gun. And as you can see right now, before I start the car, it's 78 degrees, the hose is. So you're going to start the car and let it run, and as the thermostat opens up, you'll see that temperature rise to roughly around 180-ish, somewhere around there. It's kind of insulated by the hose itself, so you'll see it maybe 160-ish. You'll see it. It'll jump. It'll be like 120 degrees, and all of a sudden it'll jump up to like 160 as the thermostat opens up. So once the thermostat's opened up and you know it's opened up, check your level and make sure it's at the proper. They have a little hash mark over here on the bottle. Fill it up to the proper level. Then you can put your cap on. You also want to make sure that the cooling fans come on and run and operate. Without the AC on or anything, just running an idle. Once all that checks out, you can put your engine cover back on and go for a test drive. And because it's a hybrid, you'll have to periodically give it throttle to get the gasoline engine to continuously run to make sure the thermostat opens up. And that pretty much completes the R&R of a thermostat housing on a 2006 Ford Escape Hybrid. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive, and I'd like to thank you for watching my videos and remind you to subscribe.